Alright, let's see if we can do this. First of all, we're going to make a big pot of meat gravy. Sunday meat gravy. We start off by first heating up the pot. Then we put some olive oil in the bottom. Just enough to cover the bottom. We don't want to put too much. We're not looking to fry everything, just to brown the meat. Now, not everybody does this, but I do. I like to flavor my oil with a little bit of garlic as I'm cooking it. And if I can find my garlic, I'll put it in. Oh, here it is. Let's go get it. Now, with every batch of meat, I put in a couple of pieces of garlic. I just crack the cloves so that they break up into pieces. And then when it cooks into the sauce, they'll be nice and soft. And you get a nice little piece of garlic love. Let's call it garlic love. All right. All right. First thing, I like to brown some of my sausage. I don't like to overcrowd the pot, so I just do a few at a time. And you see I have the garlic sitting there on the side so that doesn't burn. Just soften up and get golden. The reason I like to do the sausage first is to get all the oils from the sausage. And I use hot sausage. You want to use sweet, use sweet. Other thing I like to do with the sausage is I like to take my fork and, you know, you probably can't see it, but I poke a few holes in each of the sausage so that a lot of the oils come out of the sausage and it mixes into the sauce. Okay, another thing I like to do is, while my meat is browning, and I like to strain my tomatoes. So a lot of people don't do this anymore, but I like it. It makes for a better meat gravy. Take a couple of your tomatoes, you take them, and put them into a wire mesh strainer, and you do a couple at a time. And then what you do is you take these tomatoes, and by hand you got to squeeze them through the strainer. What that'll do is it'll get rid of any of the seeds that are in there. So anybody who can't have tomato sauce with seeds, well, somebody has, like, let's say, diverticulitis, it won't affect them. They could eat the sauce with no problem. See all those seeds in there? Well, they gotta go. Also makes the sauce a little bitter. If you don't really want to do this, you could just put the tomatoes into some type of blender, and then you just blend them and put the whole thing in. And make a lot thicker sauce too. Next thing we put in is our pig's knuckles. Not a lot of meat on them, but it's a lot of flavor. Delicious. And those pieces of garlic I was telling you about, this is what we do. We take them out, and before they brown, before they get burnt, they'll turn bitter. Just as they get a little golden, you take them out and you put them on the side and save them for later. Think of it, I need a little bit more along the side, and that's it. Alright, back to the squeezing your tomatoes. Another thing I'd like to show you is, see, while you're browning your meat, especially the sausage, you get these little pieces of sausage that fall off. If you leave them here in the middle, they're just going to burn. You push them off to the side, and they just get sweeter and sweeter into your sauce. Meat gravy. I'm sorry. Alright, let's back to squeezing our tomatoes. Okay, this is something I really want to show you. As you're straining your tomatoes, see all this? This little bit of dried up mush. This is all the seeds and a lot of the pulp of the tomato. As you're doing this, at the bottom of this sieve, at the bottom of this strainer here, you build up a lot of very nice thick parts of the tomato that get pushed through. So what you do is just tap it down, and then most of it comes off. And then at the end, you just go underneath and you wipe the bottom off into the sauce. And you see that thick residual part? That's what you want. You want to make sure you get that, or it's just going to be all tomato water, tomato juice. All right, back to straining some more tomatoes. All right, just one more thing about straining the tomatoes. See this? This is all the juice that was left at the bottom of the tomato can. Now, still a nice amount of seeds in there. Not a lot, but again, if you're trying to make it totally with no seeds, I strain all the juice left in the can through the wire mesh, push it through, I bang any residuals off the bottom, and now I've got no seeds in my meat gravy. All right, I won't bother you anymore with the straining of the tomatoes. I got a lot more to do. All right, here's something I usually like to do before I start my sauce, but unfortunately, it don't always work the way you planned. These are the meats I'm going to use to make meatballs. I got some ground pork. Never exact the amount that I can add, so this comes to almost 1.5 pounds. I got a little too much chuck, but it's about 1.75 pounds. Well, not that much more, so we'll add it in. I got about 1.25 pounds of some Italian sausage, no fennel, some beef sirloin. And that's it. I'm going to mix them together and we'll be right back. Okay, here's the rest of my ingredients for the meatballs. I have the meat. Now, I didn't mix it, but I broke it up so that we get a nice even mix. You don't want to overmix your meatballs because then they get very hard. Another thing you don't want to put is too much egg. Again, make them very hard. This is fresh parsley I picked from the yard this morning. This is just great parsley. It's so much better than what you get in the store. Tastes nothing like store-bought parsley. And this is hard Italian bread that I had a couple of days old. It wasn't really hard, so I put it in the oven last night. This morning I woke up and it was nice and hard, ready to go. I soaked it for a couple hours in beef broth. Beef broth gives it really nice flavor. People used to use water, some people use milk. I don't believe in mixing any kind of dairy with, well, I can't say dairy, but milk or cream with the pork. And here's my eggs. That's some extra parsley I have. And the cheese. Cheese I like to use the Locatelli Romano. I use about 1/2 pound of it. And I like the Locatelli. It's a little sharper. Use whatever you like. I just find the Locatelli's got more flavor, especially when cooking. I'd like to take a step back. There's one thing I forgot to mention, the garlic. I usually like to mix my garlic in the food processor or a mini chopper with my parsley. And I like to get it real fine so you don't get big chunks of garlic. And the amount of garlic can vary. The heads I used today were very small, so I used about, for this amount of meat, I used a little more than 1.5 heads. If it was a normal size head of garlic, decent size, I would have used about a head, maybe a head and a couple of cloves. All right, let's mix the meatballs and start going. All right, here we go. I want to show you what I got here. What I got here, oh, these got to come out. Look at that. They're just perfect. Look. Oh. That's ready. We have all our garlic. That was 1 head of garlic that I just let get nice golden in color. And these are what I call tester balls. Oh, don't get the wrong idea. Tester balls. I make 2 meatballs before I fry them all up. And I want to test them, make sure I got the right ingredients. The right amount of parsley, cheese, garlic. I usually have the right amount, but I think I just do it so I could taste them. Alright, I'll be back. Alright. My meatballs that I tested with are delicious. Now it's time to move on to the next step. Now we're going to add some tomato paste. Tomato paste is going to work as a thickener. It also has a bit of tartness to it to get a flavor for the meat sauce. And I'm not going to add as much as I usually do because the tomatoes I'm using today have puree in them. And the puree makes the sauce a little thick already, so I'm going to add a little bit. But I have a lot of look like a lot. I can't really measure it because my wife buys these big giant cans. And I just don't know exactly how much it is. Let's see, that's about a cup and a half. Let's see. That's about 2 cups worth of tomato paste. And we let that cook down a little bit. It loosens up. Excuse the camera work. Where's my wooden spoon? I let this scrape off all those residuals from the bottom. I'm going to let this work it into the oil. And this is going to loosen up. And once this loosens up, I'm going to add a little wine. I'm going to put this around the edges and add the wine to the middle. Sometimes I add the wine first. This case I have a nice amount of oil in there. So most of that oil is actually from the meats themselves. By cooking those meats, by browning them at a low temperature, a lot of the fats come out, and it adds a lot of flavor into your meat gravy. Alright, so here we go with this. That's a very low temperature. It's going to take a while. Let this cool down. Cook a little bit. When it loosens up, a little wine. Let the wine cook off, and we add our tomatoes. We'll be back. Bye. Alright, here we go. See how this paste really thinned out? Remember all that oil that was in there? Well, it all thinned out, helped loosen up the paste. It's at a nice little simmer. I raised the temperature a little bit, and now we add our wine. Okay, I usually like to add red wine. Today, I'm going to do a little white. Doesn't matter what kind of wine you use. You could use red, you could use white. This is a really nice white wine I had. I only had a little bit of it left over, so I used it. Mix that in. Now this is all going to cook off. It's going to not just evaporate, but cook into the tomato paste and give it a really nice little flavor. That's what it's all about, flavor. All those residuals of the meat I scraped off the bottom. There was nothing burnt and no big burn pieces, just nice little pieces of meat that were attached to the bottom. And you see the wine is just about all gone. You're going to let it really cook off, otherwise you'll have a very strong flavor of wine. Let's lower the heat a little bit. And we'll get our sauce going in a couple of seconds. I know it's a long video, but it's a long cooking process. Alright, let's take a pause. Alright, here I am. Got all my tomato sauce in there. I mixed it in because all that tomato paste down at the bottom. You don't want it to be all stuck at the bottom. You want to mix it in nice and well. Nice thickness. It's a little thicker than I usually like it, but my wife likes a thick sauce, so she always gets what she wants out of it. Next stage is easy. Throw in a couple of fresh basil leaves that I just picked from the garden. A little salt. Not too much. You always salt it later. But you got a lot of sauce in there. And now fresh ground black pepper. Can you spin this for me, please? I only got 2 hands. Put it nice in there. We got a lot of sauce there. Alright, that's good. We can always add more later. Alright, now just give it a nice stir. I'm gonna let this come to a boil. Oops. You know what? I don't want this to come to a boil. I want to put my meat in there now. Should I do it? Alright, let it come to a boil. We'll put our brown meats in. And we'll be alright. I won't be back for a while. So Just keep stirring it every once in a while until it's ready to next stage with the meat. Alright, I got my meat gravy going. I threw that couple of pieces of garlic that I had left over from that head. Let them cook nice and slow. I also threw in those pieces of garlic that I sauteed with all the meat. And now I'm going to throw in a piece of cheese rind. Cheese rind will really sort of melt in a lot. It'll stay whole. By the end of the sauce, it'll be a little smaller, but it'll add a little saltiness and a nice cheesy flavor. Don't like the cheese rind, you leave it out. Okay, here we are at the next stage. I want to show you what I wanted to get before I added my meat. See these little bubbles? Now, we're not exactly at a brisk boil, but it's just right there, and you don't want to wait for it to come up to a heavy boil, because you got it at a low temperature. You're not going to get that kind of boil, and you have a lot of bones in the meat. A lot of these. What the hell happened? I hit a button. Power off. No. Oh, I don't know why. I must have hit a button on my video here. But I was saying, you have a lot of these meat that have bones in them. And you want to get those in and let them really cook down. So you put in your pig's knuckles. I have some lamb shank. Lamb shank I got was delicious. It just was nice, big, giant pieces of lamb shank. Best lamb shank I've seen in a long time. Couple of more pig's knuckles, and I had these small oxtail pieces that I had sitting in the freezer. I defrosted them yesterday. Oxtail I replaced as my beef. Another good beef to use if you don't want to use oxtail is short ribs. They're a little expensive, but they're delicious. I put my sausage in, and I'm going to let this cook very low and slow for a couple of hours. My big piece of pork meat. I'm not going to put anything else in. Here's all the juices were down at the bottom of the meat, and little pieces of meat at the bottom. And I'm just going to come back and stir it every like 20 minutes. And let it cook nice and low and slow for a couple of hours. And look at that, it worked out just right. Just the right amount of size for this pot. Sometimes you get lucky. Another thing I like to throw in here sometimes is, my son really likes it, is hard-boiled eggs. But I didn't do it today. I had enough to do. And let's just let it cook nice and slow. Alright, see you later.